3 days after I buried my mother, my sister called me and laughed. "You got nothing," she said. "Mom left the house, the money, and everything else to me." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply asked her one question. "Are you absolutely sure that's what Mom wanted?" She laughed again and hung up. But 3 days later, we were sitting inside my mother's lawyer's office when he placed a sealed envelope on the table. He looked directly at my sister and said, "Before we begin, there's something you need to understand. The document your sister was told about is not your mother's final will." My sister's smile disappeared, and when the lawyer read the real will out loud, nobody in that room was prepared for what my mother had left behind. My name is Claire Bennett, and before I tell you what happened, I want you to understand something. This isn't a story about money. At least, it wasn't supposed to be. It was about a mother, 2 daughters, years of family tension, and one final decision that completely changed the way I saw my own family. If you enjoy emotional family stories with twists, betrayal, justice, and endings that actually mean something, please subscribe to the channel. And stay with me until the end, because what my mother wrote in that final will wasn't just about who got her house. It was about who she believed truly loved her. Now, let me take you back to the morning everything started. My mother's funeral was on a cold Tuesday morning in November. She had lived in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, in the same 3-bedroom house for almost 30 years. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't some giant estate. It was simply home. The front porch had 2 old rocking chairs. There was a maple tree in the backyard that my father had planted before he died. And inside the kitchen, there was still a small crack in the cabinet door where my sister and I had slammed it during one of our childhood arguments. My mother used to joke that she kept the cabinet because it reminded her that children eventually grow up. I wish she had been right about everything. My mother, Margaret Bennett, was 72 when she passed away. She had been sick for several months, but she never wanted anyone to make a big deal about it. That was my mother. Strong, private, and stubborn in a way that somehow made you smile even when you were angry with her. My older sister, Jennifer, was different. Jennifer was confident. She knew exactly what she wanted, and most of the time, she had no problem getting it. For years, she had been the successful one in the family. She had a beautiful house, a good job, a husband who made excellent money, and a lifestyle that made everything I had look small. I was the quieter daughter. I worked as a school counselor. I rented a modest townhouse. I drove an 8-year-old Honda. I wasn't poor, but I wasn't wealthy either. And somehow, over the years, Jennifer had turned that difference into a competition. At the funeral, she barely spoke to me. She hugged relatives. She thanked people for coming. She accepted flowers. But whenever our eyes met, there was something cold in her expression. I thought she was grieving. I was wrong. 3 days after the funeral, my phone rang at 8:17 in the evening. It was Jennifer. I answered. "Hello." There was a long silence. Then she said, "Mom left me the house." I sat up straight. "What?" "The house," she repeated, "and most of her accounts." I didn't know what to say. She continued, "I thought you should hear it from me instead of somebody else." "Who told you?" "Mom's old attorney." I frowned. "What attorney?" "David Miller." I knew the name. Mr. Miller had handled some of my mother's legal paperwork years earlier. Jennifer laughed softly. "You always thought Mom loved you more." I felt my stomach tighten. "Jennifer, this isn't the time." "No, Claire. It actually is." She paused. Then she said the words I'll never forget. "You got nothing." I stared at the wall. I could hear the refrigerator running in the kitchen. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. Finally, I asked, "Are you sure?" She laughed. "Completely." "Did you see the will?" I don't need to explain anything to you. Jennifer. Mom knew who actually took care of her. That sentence hurt more than the rest. Because I had, for the last 6 months of my mother's life, I had driven 40 minutes each way after work. I took her to doctor appointments. I bought her groceries. I sat beside her during the nights when she couldn't sleep. I learned how to organize her medications. I cleaned her kitchen. I listened to her stories. And I never once asked her what she was leaving me. Not once. Because I didn't want her money. I wanted my mother. But Jennifer didn't know that. Or maybe she knew and simply didn't care. Before hanging up, she said something else. Oh, and Claire. Yes. Don't embarrass yourself by fighting this. Then she hung up. I sat there in silence. I didn't cry. Instead, I remembered something my mother had told me about 2 weeks before she died. She had held my hand from her hospital bed and whispered, "Sweetheart, when I'm gone, don't let anyone convince you that I didn't make my own decisions." At the time, I thought she was simply talking about life. Now I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I called David Miller. His secretary answered. "Good morning, Miller and Associates. My name is Claire Bennett. My mother was Margaret Bennett." There was a pause. "I know who you are, Miss Bennett." That surprised me. "I need to ask about my mother's will." Another pause. Then she said, "Mr. Miller would like to see you." "When?" "Tomorrow morning." I agreed. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about my sister's words. "You got nothing." But I also kept remembering my mother's face, her voice, her hand holding mine. Don't let anyone convince you that I didn't make my own decisions. The next morning, I drove to Mr. Miller's office. Jennifer was already there. She was sitting in the waiting room wearing a black coat and expensive sunglasses. She looked at me and smiled. Not a warm smile. A victorious one. "You actually came," she said. "I was invited." She shrugged. Mom's will is pretty straightforward. I didn't respond. Mr. Miller's assistant opened the door. "Mr. Miller will see you now." We walked inside. David Miller was in his late 60s. He had known my mother for nearly 20 years. He stood when we entered. "Claire." "Jennifer." He shook our hands. Then he sat down. For a few moments, nobody spoke. Finally, Jennifer said, "I already explained everything to Claire." Mr. Miller looked at her. "No, Jennifer. You explained your understanding of the situation." She frowned. "What does that mean?" Mr. Miller folded his hands on the desk. "It means we need to begin with the documents." Jennifer leaned back. "Fine, Mr. Miller opened a file. He looked at me. "Claire, your mother signed a will 8 years ago." Jennifer smiled. "Exactly." But he continued, "She signed another will 4 months ago." Jennifer's smile disappeared. "What?" I looked at him. "4 months ago?" "Yes." Jennifer sat forward. "That doesn't make sense." Mr. Miller calmly removed a sealed envelope from the file. "This is your mother's final will." Jennifer stared at it. "That's impossible." Mr. Miller looked at her. "Why?" "Because Mom told me she wasn't changing anything." He didn't answer. Instead, he opened the envelope. Before reading anything, he said, "Your mother specifically instructed me that this document was to be read in the presence of both daughters." Jennifer looked at me. I felt my heart pounding. Mr. Miller began reading. "My name is Margaret Elaine Bennett." His voice was calm. "I declare this to be my last will and testament." Jennifer's fingers tightened around the arms of her chair. "Mr. Miller continued, I revoke all previous wills and amendments." Jennifer whispered, "No." Mr. Miller stopped. She looked at him. "What?" He said, "Would you like me to continue?" Jennifer swallowed. "Yes." He continued. My daughter, Jennifer Bennett, has received substantial financial assistance from me during the past 10 years. Jennifer's face turned red. That doesn't belong in a will. Mr. Miller didn't react. He kept reading. My daughter, Claire Bennett, has never requested financial assistance from me, despite being present during my illness and providing daily care when I was unable to care for myself. My eyes filled with tears. I looked down. I didn't want Jennifer to see me cry. But then Mr. Miller said something that changed everything. My daughters have both received love from me, but they have not always understood that love in the same way. The room became completely silent. Then he read the next section. To Jennifer, I leave my personal jewelry collection, including my mother's diamond necklace. Jennifer's face changed. She smiled slightly. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe Jennifer really had inherited the house. Then Mr. Miller turned the page. To Claire, I leave the property located at 418 Willow Creek Lane, including the residence, all furnishings, and the land associated with it. Jennifer jumped from her chair. What? Mr. Miller looked up. She pointed at me. She gets the house? Yes, but I was told. Mr. Miller raised a hand. Please let me finish. Jennifer sat down slowly. Mr. Miller continued. I also leave Claire the contents of my savings account at First National Bank, totaling approximately $186,000 at the time of this document's execution. I stared at him. I couldn't breathe. My mother had never told me about that account. Not once. Then came the part that shocked both of us. My remaining investment assets, valued at approximately $420,000, shall be placed into a trust. Jennifer leaned forward. Whose trust? Mr. Miller looked at her. A charitable trust. Jennifer stared at him. For what? Mr. Miller read. The Margaret Bennett Family Care Fund, established to provide financial assistance to adult children caring for aging parents who cannot afford professional care. My eyes filled with tears. That was my mother. Even at the end, she was thinking about strangers. Then Mr. Miller reached the final page. And finally, he paused. Jennifer was breathing heavily. I wiped my eyes. Mr. Miller looked directly at both of us. My greatest wish is that my daughters stop measuring my love by the things I leave behind. Nobody moved. Then he read the final sentence. If Jennifer chooses to contest this will, I have instructed my attorney to provide her with the private letter attached to this document. Jennifer whispered. A letter. Mr. Miller pulled another envelope from the file. He placed it on the desk. Jennifer stared at it. What's in there? Mr. Miller said quietly. Your mother's explanation. Jennifer reached for the envelope. Her hand was shaking. She opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. She started reading silently. Her expression changed almost immediately. First confusion, then anger, then something I hadn't seen on her face in years. Shame. Finally, she handed it to me. I can't. I looked at Mr. Miller. He nodded. I took the letter. My mother's handwriting covered 3 pages. It began, My dear daughters, if you are reading this, then I am no longer there to explain myself. I had to stop. My vision blurred. I continued. I know money has always been a difficult subject in our family. My mother knew. Of course she knew. She wrote about Jennifer. She didn't insult her. She didn't blame her. She simply explained that over the years, Jennifer had received help with college, help with her first home, help when her husband lost his job, help with medical bills, help with a business investment. None of those things had bothered my mother. She had given because she wanted to. Then she wrote about me. Claire never asked me for anything. My throat tightened. She gave me something far more valuable than money. She gave me her time. I couldn't continue. I put the letter down. Jennifer was crying now, quietly. For the first time in years, I saw my sister without the armor. No expensive clothes. No confidence. No superiority. Just a daughter who had lost her mother. Mr. Miller gave us a few minutes. Eventually, Jennifer whispered, "Why didn't Mom tell me?" I answered honestly. Maybe she tried. Jennifer looked at me. I continued. Maybe we just didn't listen. She looked away. Then she said something that surprised me. I thought she hated me. I shook my head. She didn't. How do you know? Because she spent her entire life trying to love both of us. Jennifer wiped her face. But why did she give you everything? I looked at the letter again. She didn't. Jennifer frowned. She gave you the house and money. Yes, but she gave away the rest. I nodded. She gave it to something she believed mattered. What? I told her about the family care fund. Jennifer stared at the floor. Then she whispered, "That sounds like Mom." And for the first time since the funeral, neither of us argued. I didn't move into my mother's house immediately. I couldn't. Every room had memories. Her coffee mug was still beside the kitchen sink. Her sweater was still hanging behind the bedroom door. There were photographs everywhere. One afternoon, I found an old photo album in the closet. Jennifer and I were about 7 and 10 years old. We were sitting on the porch with our mother. Jennifer had missing teeth. I was holding a stuffed rabbit. Our mother was laughing. I stared at that photograph for nearly 10 minutes. Then I called Jennifer. "Do you want some of Mom's pictures?" She was quiet. Then she said, "Yeah." I expected her to come alone. She brought her husband. They sat in my mother's living room for almost 3 hours. We went through photographs, letters, Christmas cards, school drawings, old birthday decorations. And slowly, something strange happened. We started talking, not about the will, not about money, about Mom. Jennifer told me something I'd never known. When she was 19, she had dropped out of college for 1 semester. She was embarrassed and didn't tell anyone. But Mom knew. She had secretly paid the tuition so Jennifer could return. I told Jennifer something she didn't know. When I was 23, I had wanted to move across the country. Mom had begged me to stay. I had thought she was being selfish. But years later, I discovered that my father had been seriously ill at the time. Mom didn't want to burden me with it. She just wanted me nearby. We spent hours telling each other stories. And I realized something. My sister and I had spent years fighting over a mother who had never wanted us to fight. The inheritance had not created the damage. It had simply exposed it. A week later, Jennifer came to the house again. She had something in her hands. A box. She placed it on the kitchen table. "What is that?" She opened it. Inside were several pieces of jewelry, including the diamond necklace from Mom's will. She took it out. "I don't want this." I stared at her. "Why?" "Because Mom wanted you to have the house. That doesn't mean I should have everything." Jennifer shook her head. "I don't mean that." She placed the necklace back in the box. "I want you to keep this." I smiled sadly. "Jennifer, Mom left that to you." "I know." "Then keep it." She looked at me. "I have enough things." Then she smiled. What I didn't have was a sister. That broke me. I walked around the table and hugged her. We both cried, not because of the inheritance, because we finally understood what we'd almost lost. 2 months later, David Miller called me. He asked me to come to his office. I assumed it was paperwork. When I arrived, Jennifer was already there. Mr. Miller smiled. "I have one final item from your mother's estate." Jennifer looked confused. "What now?" Mr. Miller opened a drawer. He pulled out a small wooden box. He handed it to me. "This was found in your mother's bedroom." I opened it. Inside was a small silver key. There was also a note. My mother's handwriting. For Claire and Jennifer. I looked at my sister. We read it together. The note said, "My girls, if you have reached this point without fighting over my belongings, then perhaps you finally understand what I was trying to teach you. There is one last thing I want you to see. Use the key together." We looked at Mr. Miller. "Where does it go?" He smiled. "Your mother never told me." So we went back to the house. We searched every room. Nothing. Then Jennifer remembered something. The basement. We went downstairs. There was an old wooden cabinet that had been locked for years. I tried the key. It fit. Inside was a small metal cash box. Jennifer looked at me. "Are you kidding me?" I laughed. "Open it." Inside were dozens of letters. Letters we'd written to our mother as children. A drawing Jennifer had made when she was 5. A birthday card I had made when I was 8. There were photographs. There were old newspaper clippings. And there was one final letter. This one was addressed to both of us. I opened it. My mother's words were simple. "My daughters, I couldn't leave you a perfect family. No parent can. I couldn't protect you from every argument, every disappointment, or every mistake. But I could leave you a choice. You can spend the rest of your lives arguing about who got more. Or you can realize that the greatest thing I ever gave you is each other. The house will eventually be sold. The money will eventually be spent. Jewelry will eventually be lost. But family can be rebuilt. If you choose to rebuild it." I stopped reading. Jennifer was crying. She took my hand. And for a long time, neither of us said anything. A year after my mother's funeral, Jennifer and I went back to the cemetery. We brought flowers. There was a light snow falling. We stood beside our mother's grave. Jennifer looked at me. "You know what Mom would say if she could see us?" I smiled. "What?" "She'd say we're finally behaving like adults." I laughed. "She'd probably say we took long enough." Jennifer nodded. Then she put her flowers down. "I used to think Mom loved you more." I looked at her. "I used to think she loved you more." She laughed. "Really?" "Really." We stood there in silence. Then Jennifer said, "Maybe she just loved us differently." I nodded. "Maybe." She took my arm. We walked away from the grave together. The house was still mine. The money was still there. The care fund had already helped several families, but none of those things mattered as much as they had 1 year earlier, because my mother's final will hadn't really been about inheritance. It had been about truth. She knew my sister was hurting. She knew I was hurt too. She knew neither of us understood the other. So she left us something neither of us expected. A final lesson. A final opportunity. And somehow a second chance. My mother had spent her final months preparing a will. But what she was really preparing was us. She knew that after she was gone, we would have to choose what kind of daughters we wanted to be. We could become enemies fighting over her memory. Or we could become sisters who carried it together. And thankfully, we chose each other. Sometimes the people we lose leave behind more than houses, bank accounts, jewelry, or photographs. Sometimes they leave behind unfinished conversations, unanswered questions, old wounds. And sometimes, if we're lucky, they leave us one final chance to make things right. My mother couldn't give me back the years my sister and I had wasted, but she gave us something better. She gave us a reason to stop wasting them. So if you're listening to this and you're fighting with someone in your family over money, property, pride, or an old argument, remember this. One day, the house won't matter. The money won't matter. The argument won't matter. What will matter is whether you still have someone beside you when everything else is gone. Because in the end, my mother didn't leave me the greatest inheritance. She left me my sister. And that was worth more than everything written on that will. If this story touched your heart, Subscribe to the channel and stay with us for more emotional family stories, unexpected betrayals, powerful twists, and endings that remind us what really matters. And if you were in Claire's position, would you have forgiven Jennifer? Tell me in the comments. I'll see you in the next story.